1. Silence isn't emptiness, it's preparation. Don't mistake your quiet season for insignificance. When you stay silent, you're not invisible, you're being sharpened. Diamonds form in silence. Growth happens in the dark. Just because you're not making noise doesn't mean you're not making progress. Some of the greatest victories are won behind closed doors before the world ever hears your name. Be still. Let the silence shape you before the spotlight shows you. 2. You don't have to chase what's meant for you. Stop running after everything you think you need to prove your worth. What's yours will always find its way to you when you're ready. Don't break yourself trying to break through. Stay rooted, stay grounded. If you build yourself in silence, what's meant for you will be drawn to your discipline, not your desperation. God doesn't bless noise, He blesses alignment. 3. Let your character speak louder than your voice. You don't have to talk about what you're building when your results will speak for you. Keep quiet, keep working. Let your work echo through the halls of those who doubted you. The loudest ones in the room are often the most insecure. But when you're silent and focused, people feel your presence before you even open your mouth. Your silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. 4. Patience is power, and silence is its weapon. In a world that moves fast, the strongest people are the ones who know how to wait, not passively, but purposefully. Silence isn't doing nothing, it's doing the inner work. That's where strength is built. That's where faith is forged. Be patient, be quiet. Keep preparing in private while everything is lining up in the background. When the time is right, everything will come a note because you forced it, but because you were faithful. 1. Silence isn't emptiness, it's preparation. There's a certain discomfort that comes with silence, isn't there? A kind of pressure that builds when nothing is being said, when the noise dies down and all that's left is you alone with your thoughts, alone with your fears, and alone with your questions. It's in those silent moments that many people get restless, uncomfortable, even afraid. They think silence means nothing is happening. They think if no one's clapping, if no one's watching, if no one's validating, then the progress must be stuck. But silence doesn't mean emptiness, it means preparation. Growth isn't always loud. In fact, the most important transformations happen in secret. Think about it. The seed doesn't break through the soil immediately. It spends time buried in darkness, in silence, unseen, unnoticed. But it's not doing nothing. Underneath the surface, there's movement. Roots are being formed. Foundations are being built. Strength is being created in silence, long before beauty is revealed. The same is true for your life. Just because you don't see fruit yet doesn't mean growth isn't happening. Your roots are forming, your foundation is being laid, and that takes silence. But in a world addicted to noise, silence looks like failure. Everyone's posting, shouting, showing off. Everyone wants to be seen. Everyone's in a hurry to announce, but silence doesn't rush. Silence doesn't need to be loud to be strong. It doesn't need to prove anything. When you're truly being prepared, you don't need to talk about what's happening because the transformation is internal. The real work is invisible until the right time. There is a kind of power in restraint, in choosing not to react, not to explain, not to defend, not to beg for validation. Power in sitting in the silence and trusting the process. Because silence teaches you how to endure when the applause stops. It teaches you how to be consistent when no one's watching. It teaches you how to stand strong on values, not on views. That's the kind of preparation that builds lasting character, not just quick success. Preparation in silence also allows for clarity. When you're not distracted by outside voices, you can actually hear your inner voice. And often, that's the one we ignore the most. But that's the voice that guides you to purpose. That's the voice that tells you what to keep and what to let go. That's the voice that says, keep going, even if nobody sees it yet, keep building. Even if nobody claps. The world's noise will have you doubting your pace, comparing your lane, and sabotaging your journey. But silence brings you back to center. It brings you back to why you started in the first place. And in that silent space, discipline is born. Discipline doesn't come from being motivated by others. It comes from making a decision when no one's holding you accountable. From choosing to work on the days when nobody's checking. From committing to your craft even when it's not convenient. That's what preparation looks like. That's what silence demands. The kind of growth that makes you unshakable isn't built in the spotlight, it's forged in solitude. In the moments you choose to keep going, even when no one is cheering. Silence also teaches you how to manage disappointment. When things don't go your way and the door closes and nobody gives you an explanation, silence becomes the classroom. You learn that setbacks aren't the end. You learn to process pain without performing it. You learn to keep your spirit steady while your surroundings are unstable. That kind of maturity doesn't come from comfort. It comes from the silent seasons, the ones where you have to wrestle with your reality and still choose to believe in something greater. Some people panic in silence because they think it means abandonment. They think God's not listening. They think life is punishing them. But silence is sacred. Silence is the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And it's necessary. You can't carry old thinking into a new season. You can't take fragile foundations into a future that demands strength. The silence is separating you. It's refining you. It's preparing you for what you said you wanted. And if you skip it, you may step into your calling with shaky legs. You may reach the platform, but not be ready to handle the weight. The silence makes sure you're not just ready to arrive, but ready to remain. You see, it's not hard to succeed. The hard part is sustaining it. That's why the preparation is so important. You don't want to just taste greatness. You want to live in it. And for that, you need endurance. Endurance is built in silence. It's built when the results are delayed, when the recognition is missing, and when the pressure is mounting. It's built when you keep showing up for yourself without needing someone else to notice. It's built when your why is louder than your emotions. And here's the truth. When you've been prepared in silence, no amount of noise can knock you off course, because you weren't built by compliments, and you won't be broken by criticism. Your identity isn't tied to feedback, it's tied to foundation. And your foundation was formed when no one was looking. When you decided to keep your integrity, when you chose to keep your heart soft, when you showed up with excellence in environments that didn't appreciate it, that's preparation, that's power. Preparation in silence also gives you wisdom. When you're not rushing to speak, you learn to observe. You start noticing patterns. You begin to discern what's real and what's hype. You stop being reactive and start being strategic. Some of the biggest mistakes happen because people move too fast, talk too soon, or chase what looks good before they're ready. But silence teaches you patience. It teaches you to wait for the right timing, not just the first opportunity. Because not every open door is divine. Some doors are distractions. And if you haven't been prepared, you won't be able to tell the difference. There's also healing in silence. Some wounds you can't rush. Some scars require solitude. Not everything is meant to be shared while it's still bleeding. Some pain must be processed privately before it can become power publicly. The silence gives you that space. It gives you the room to reflect, to feel, to forgive, to release, so that when you step forward, you're not carrying yesterday's baggage into tomorrow's blessing. So many people are in a hurry to speak, to post, to promote, to explain. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Sometimes the loudest statement is your silence. Especially when you're being underestimated, overlooked, or misunderstood. Let your progress speak for you. Let your discipline speak for you. Let your transformation speak for you. Because when you come out of the silence, they won't recognize you, and that's the point. You're not who you were, you've been prepared. And yes, it's hard to stay silent when your mind is screaming with questions, when your ego wants to fight back, when your insecurities want attention. But silence is strength. Silence is security. It means you don't need approval to keep moving. It means you're not rattled by temporary situations. It means you're grounded in something deeper than circumstance. That's what makes you unstoppable. That's what gives you peace, even in chaos. Everything of value takes time, and most of that time is quiet. A tree doesn't grow overnight. A masterpiece isn't painted in a moment. A legacy isn't built in a weekend. It takes patience. It takes resilience. It takes silence. And if you learn how to embrace that silence, if you learn how to stay present in the preparation, you'll find that everything you were trying to force will begin to come naturally. Opportunities will find you. Clarity will arrive. The right people will show up. But not because you chased it, because you were ready. See, when preparation meets timing, purpose is born. But preparation is what you can control. And most of that happens in silence. In the early mornings, in the late nights, in the moments when no one is watching, that's where champions are made. That's where leaders are built. That's where transformation begins. In the silence, in the stillness, in the space that looks empty to others but is actually full of purpose. You have to trust the silence. Trust that the lack of noise doesn't mean lack of progress. Trust that the stillness is doing more for your future than the struggle. Trust that you're not behind, you're being refined. Trust that what you're building will last longer because you didn't rush, because you took the time to let the foundation settle, because you stayed committed even when it was quiet. That kind of preparation sets you apart. Most people give up in the silence. They think it's over. They think they missed their moment. But those who endure in silence are the ones who rise when it matters most. They don't burn out because they've built stamina. They don't break down because they've built stability. They don't fold under pressure because they've trained for it in secret. They know that silence isn't punishment, it's preparation. So don't despise your quiet season. Don't run from the silence. Don't think you're failing just because the world isn't watching. That's where the real work is happening. That's where the shift begins. Keep your head down, keep your heart right, keep your hands moving, and let the silence do what only silence can do, prepare you for what's coming next. 2. You don't have to chase what's meant for you. There's a certain kind of pressure that comes with ambition. It's not bad, it's natural. You want more, you want to grow, you want to prove that you were born for something greater. That hunger inside of you, that fire, it can be a gift, but it can also become a trap. Because sometimes, in the pursuit of purpose, people begin to panic. They start chasing everything that looks like success, everything that glitters like gold, everything that promises fulfillment. But not everything you chase is meant to be caught. And not everything that's meant for you needs to be hunted down. You don't have to chase what's already written in your story. You just have to become the person who's ready to receive it. The world will tell you to run after everything, faster, harder, louder. It tells you that if you're not moving, you're losing, that if you're not constantly achieving, you're falling behind. But what they don't tell you is that chasing without clarity leads to exhaustion. That movement without direction isn't progress, it's panic. You can be moving and still be stuck. You can be chasing and still be lost. The question is not how fast you're moving, it's whether your motion is aligned with your mission. There's a difference between pursuit and pressure. Pursuit is healthy, it's intentional. It's when you're walking in step with your calling. Pressure, on the other hand, is chaotic, it's reactive. It comes from comparison, fear, and insecurity. And the danger is, pressure can feel like purpose when you're disconnected from your identity. When you don't know who you are, you'll chase anything that promises significance. You'll run after opportunities that look good but aren't good for you. You'll stretch yourself for people who don't even see you. You'll perform, pretend, and overextend because you think that the more you do, the more you'll be loved. But real purpose doesn't require performance. What's meant for you won't require you to lose yourself to find it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to manipulate for it. You won't have to exhaust your soul to maintain it. When you're walking in alignment, the right doors don't just open, they recognize you. They swing open because you're ready, not because you forced them to. That's the power of patience. That's the reward of preparation. Think about how many people are out here trying to prove they're worthy, hustling for approval, performing for validation. But all that energy is going outwards, and nothing is being built internally. They're growing a platform with no foundation. They're growing a following with no direction. And eventually, that house crumbles. Because anything built in anxiety has to be maintained by anxiety. But when it's built in truth, in alignment, in patience, it can weather any storm. When you stop chasing what isn't meant for you, you make room for what is. You stop wasting energy trying to fit into rooms where your presence is only tolerated. You stop shrinking yourself to be accepted. You stop bending your boundaries for temporary applause. And in that stillness, you realize something powerful. What you were meant for is also looking for you. Destiny is drawn to preparation. Opportunity is attracted to identity. When you know who you are, you stop needing to be everywhere, you just need to be in position. The right relationships will find you when you're living in truth. The right opportunities will recognize your preparation. The right doors will open not because you banged on them, but because your integrity turned the key. You don't need to chase what's already yours. You need to become the version of yourself who can handle it. You need to grow into the space you're meant to occupy. And that growth doesn't happen in panic. It happens in patience, in silence, in solitude, in the work no one sees. You see, the goal isn't just to get there, it's to be able to stay there. And staying power doesn't come from hustle, it comes from healing. If you're chasing things to escape your wounds, you'll never feel at peace even when you catch them. Because the problem wasn't that you didn't have enough, it was that you didn't believe you were enough. But when you're whole, you don't have to beg, you don't have to perform, you don't have to explain. You walk with a kind of quiet confidence that says, I know what I carry, and I know what belongs to me will never miss me. That kind of confidence doesn't come overnight. It's built over time. It's built in the silent seasons when you're doing the inner work, when you're choosing discipline over distraction, when you're choosing healing over hustling, when you're choosing truth over trends. And when you do that, something shifts. You stop running after things, you start attracting them. Not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing passive about purpose. It still requires action. It still demands excellence. But the action is different. It's not frantic. It's focused. It's not desperate. It's deliberate. You're not trying to impress anyone, you're trying to impact. You're not chasing applause, you're building legacy. That's the difference between striving and surrendering. Surrendering doesn't mean giving up, it means giving in to the process. Trusting that what's for you is worth the wait, that what's real won't require you to rush. Too often, people quit right before the breakthrough. They give up in the silence, they chase shortcuts, they choose counterfeit versions of success just because they're quicker. But fast fruit doesn't last. Easy come, easy go. The stuff that stays is the stuff you prepare for. It's the stuff you sacrifice for. It's the stuff you waited for. Because waiting isn't wasted time, it's preparation time. Some of the greatest stories begin with rejection, with detours, with being overlooked. But that rejection wasn't the end, it was redirection. It was making sure you didn't settle for less than what you were made for. And sometimes, the greatest blessing is the door that didn't open, the person that didn't stay, the opportunity that passed you by. Not because you weren't good enough, but because it wasn't yours. And the sooner you stop chasing what's not for you, the sooner you'll step into what is. There's a level of peace that comes with knowing you don't have to force your future, you just have to focus on your foundation. Build yourself, develop your gifts, stay consistent, stay faithful. And trust that when the time is right, what's yours will come not as a favor, but as a result, because you didn't skip the process, because you didn't rush the preparation, because you didn't compromise your character to get there quicker. Purpose isn't about popularity, it's about perseverance. It's about staying rooted when everything around you says go chase. It's about knowing that your identity isn't tied to how many people are watching. It's tied to how you walk when no one is. That's where alignment begins. And when you're aligned, you don't have to chase it, comes naturally. It flows, it fits, it finds you. It may not look like it right now. You may feel behind. You may feel like everyone else is passing you. But time is not your enemy. Timing is your advantage. What's for you won't feel like a race, it'll feel like a rhythm. The rhythm of grace, the rhythm of growth, the rhythm of grounded purpose. And when it arrives, you won't be surprised, you'll be ready. So stop chasing things that aren't aligned with who you are. Stop forcing outcomes that don't feel right. Stop thinking you have to be everywhere, impress everyone, and say yes to everything. Your no is powerful, your boundaries are necessary, and your pace is sacred. Stay in your lane, stay in your process. Because what's meant for you isn't running away, it's waiting for you to become the version of yourself that can handle it. You're not late, you're not lost, you're not lacking, you're in preparation, you're in position, you're being shaped in silence for something greater than you've imagined. Let go of the chase and lean into the becoming, because that's where the real work is, that's where the transformation lives, and that's where the promise starts to unfold. Not because you chased it, but because you were faithful enough to wait for it. 3. You're not buried, you're being planted. There's a moment in every journey where it feels like everything has gone dark. A moment when the applause stops, the doors close, the distractions fade, and all that's left is silence. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the kind that makes you question everything. The kind that makes you wonder if all your effort, all your sacrifice, all your hope was just a waste. It's in those moments that doubt creeps in and starts to whisper, "You've been buried." But what if that darkness isn't the end? What if it's the beginning? What if what you thought was burial is actually planting? A seed looks lifeless when it's pushed into the dirt. It gets covered, hidden, forgotten. Nobody claps for it, nobody watches it, nobody celebrates it. But just because it's unseen doesn't mean it's unproductive. The dirt isn't the death of the seed, it's the development. And you, too, are in a season that looks like silence but is really strategy. You're not buried, you're being planted. And the difference between the two isn't the environment, it's the expectation. Buried is final, planted is foundational. It's easy to misinterpret your process when you're in the dark, because darkness has a way of distorting your vision. It makes you think this is how it will always be, that this season is permanent, that the silence is a sentence, but development always happens underground. Before the fruit, there are roots. Before the spotlight, there's soil. And if you skip the soil, you sacrifice the strength, because it's the pressure underground that builds power. It's the resistance that builds roots strong enough to carry the future you're praying for. You can't ask for elevation and resist the dirt. You can't ask for growth and refuse the pressure. Everyone wants the platform, but few are willing to endure the planting, because planting is lonely. It's quiet. It doesn't give you instant results. You don't plant a seed and see a tree the next day. There's no applause during germination. There's no affirmation in the quiet. But just because you can't see the growth doesn't mean it's not happening. The dirt is doing what it's supposed to do. It's pushing you deeper before it allows you to go higher. This is where patience becomes your power. Because in a world addicted to instant, patience is a weapon. Most people quit before the seed even cracks. They walk away in the middle of the process because they think delay means denial. But delay is where destiny develops. The waiting isn't wasted. It's where the roots go deep enough so that when the growth happens, it lasts. You're not just being prepared to rise, you're being prepared to stay once you rise. Because elevation without foundation is a setup for collapse. But when the roots are real, the fruit can flourish. Sometimes, what feels like isolation is actually insulation. You think you're alone, but you're really being protected. Hidden, yes, but not forgotten. Covered, yes, but not rejected. You are being formed in a place that feels like darkness, but it's really divine design. Because not everyone needs to see your becoming. Some things need to be grown in silence. Some callings need to be cultivated without the crowd. Because the more people you have in the soil with you, the more contamination you risk. God hides you not to punish you, but to preserve you. Growth in private leads to strength in public. Because when you grow away from the spotlight, you're not performing, you're becoming. You're not trying to impress anyone, you're being shaped by the silence. It's in that hidden place that your integrity is forged, your humility is tested, your resilience is built. You learn how to talk to yourself when no one else is speaking life into you. You learn how to keep going when no one is clapping. You learn how to trust the process even when you can't predict the outcome. And when you finally break through the surface, when that first sprout comes out of the soil, you don't have to prove your worth. Your growth proves it. You don't have to argue with anyone about your calling. Your consistency confirms it. You don't have to defend your journey. Your results will speak for themselves. That's the power of being planted. You let the fruit do the talking. But here's the challenge. When you're in the soil, everything feels still. You can't see the change. You can't measure the progress. And the danger in the dark is that you'll dig up the seed because it's not growing fast enough. You'll abort the process because the result isn't immediate. But if you keep digging up the seed, it never gets a chance to become. Some of the greatest failures in life are not because people didn't have potential, but because they didn't have patience. They gave up too early. They pulled themselves out of the very place that was shaping them for greatness. You've got to be willing to stay in the dirt long enough to break through. You've got to trust that what's happening beneath the surface is building something that will eventually be seen. And not just seen, but strong, sustainable, significant. Because the deeper the roots, the higher the reach, the stronger the foundation, the taller the future. And that's what the soil is for. You can't skip this part. You can't fast forward formation. If you want the kind of life that lasts, the kind of purpose that's unshakable, you've got to be willing to endure the parts that aren't glamorous, the parts that aren't Instagrammable, the parts that feel like nothing is happening, because those are the moments that matter most. That's where the real work is being done. That's where the greatness is getting shaped, not in front of the crowd, but in the quiet. And when you embrace the soil, something shifts in you. You stop looking for validation from the outside. You stop comparing your progress to someone else's highlight reel. You stop measuring your worth by what's visible. You start to understand that some of the most powerful things in life grow slowly. That just because it's not flashy doesn't mean it's not fruitful. That just because you're hidden doesn't mean you're not valuable. In fact, it's the very fact that you're hidden that means you're worth protecting. Think about diamonds. They don't form in comfort, they form under pressure, deep in the earth, in darkness, in heat, and it takes time. But when they emerge, they're one of the most valuable substances on the planet. Not because they were seen early, but because they were shaped correctly. You are in your diamond season. You are being shaped under pressure for a purpose you haven't even seen yet. And when it's time, you won't just shine, you'll withstand. So don't resent the dirt. Respect it. Don't rush the process. Revere it. Don't compare your seed to someone else's tree. They've just been planted longer. Your season will come. Your time will come. Your fruit will show. But only if you stay in the soil long enough to grow. Not all growth is visible. Not all progress is public. But if you stay planted, you will eventually produce. You may feel like you've been forgotten. You haven't. You may feel like you're behind. You're not. You may feel like nothing is happening. Everything is happening. But it's happening underground. In the unseen places. In the hidden spaces. In the soil that no one celebrates. That's where real success begins. That's where legacies are formed. That's where your roots are digging deep so that your life can rise strong. So hold on, stay planted, stay faithful, keep watering the vision even when you don't see results. Keep believing in the process even when it feels slow. Keep nurturing the dream even when others have walked away. Because this isn't burial, it's breakthrough. This isn't death, it's development. This isn't the end, it's just the beginning. And when the time is right, the world will see what the soil was hiding. They'll see the strength that silence built. They'll see the beauty that the brokenness shaped. They'll see the fruit that came from your faith. But more importantly, you'll feel it. You'll feel the weight of what you've become. And you'll know you weren't buried, you were planted. And now it's time to rise.